Hello, I say a big welcome to you viewers and listeners. Thank you so much for the trust you have in us. We are back with the 7th episode of Single Spine, The Issues. This promise we have given you a number of times, and I can assure you that today we will be discussing categories 2 and 3 allowances. The issue of allowances has been very controversial in recent times, and most public servants are often bewildered as to the particular allowances they are entitled to in their tenure of service. Several unions and institutions also have embarked upon nationwide strike actions in order to demand certain allowances they feel they are entitled to. On today's platform, we'll be looking at categories 2 and 3 allowances and who qualifies for that. My guest with me in the studio to do this is Mrs. IRENE Duncan ADENUSA, who is representing the Ghana National Association of Teachers. I also have with me on this platform Mr. Joseph N.K. GADIKOR, Director in charge Finance and Administration with the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission. They are my guests in the studio. You're most welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let us go into the issue of allowances and maybe talk in generic terms what the various categories as far as allowances are concerned, and then we will narrow it down onto the categories 2 and 3 allowances. Let me start with you, Mr. GADIKOR.
Thank you very much. When we talk of allowances, allowances are rewards that are given to employees as a result of the performance of certain jobs within the public service. And these allowances can either be in cash or in kind. And the allowances are in addition to the actual salaries that are paid to these employees. Now, in the public service, we have several allowances. But with the government white paper, we have a feature that is the categorization of these allowances into 4 groups. We have category 1 allowances, 2, 3, and 4 allowances. These are allowances that we can find within the public services. As I said earlier, because of the fact that we have several allowances within the public services, it became very important to actually categorize these allowances into the various groups that we're talking about. Now, when we talk of category 1 allowances, these are allowances that relate to normal duties, responsibilities, and requirements of a job. And for that matter, in the course of the job evaluation, these have been taken into account. So they have been factored in the determination of the basic salary of an employee. And for that matter, the category 1 allowances are no more to be paid within the public services. Now, examples.
Am I to understand that enough education has gone into this to let people appreciate why the need to take that decision? I understand this is one of the platforms, of course, to send out the education, but apart from this platform, am I to understand that enough education or enough stakeholder meeting has taken place within the various unions and institutions to explain to them why this decision has been taken?
Yes, we actually undertook a lot of public education on this particular subject. I can say that we actually went through all the regions in Ghana, educating our stakeholders on issues of this nature. In terms of the allowances, we went further to have stakeholder discussions involving the Public Service Joint Standing Negotiation Committee. This is a special committee set up to actually help the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission negotiate all the negotiables within the new pay system or regime. So we have done a lot of education as in a way of building consensus and ownership of the process.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mrs. Adenusa, I will shift attention to you now. Anytime you hear agitation on the part of teachers, they will talk about nothing but allowances, which they are demanding, and that has been the reason why we've witnessed some of these unfortunate strike actions on the part of teachers. I am very happy you are here representing the National Association of Teachers, and you will have a lot to talk about this. Let's move straight away into some of those demands made by teachers and whether they are justified in the first place, and then we can delve into the respective allowances regarding categories 2 and 3.
Thank you. Just for me to, just a little clarification, taking on from the issue of education.
Education, yes.
I believe that in as much as we try to educate, for even some of us at the helm of it, the technicalities are a bit sticky for us. So you realize that at times, at the table, as you're doing the technical work, you understand it, but then you go out there and how to carry out that message to the person on the receiving side, then becomes a problem. So as you talk about education, we just have to keep educating and educating, because issues come up, people ask, but how come I'm the headmaster or I'm a circuit supervisor and I'm supposed to be senior to the head teacher or headmaster of a school, and he is getting more
than I am getting,
than I
have been shortchanged as a result.
I have been shortchanged. It is all because of this job evaluation and job content and so on. So at times you try to explain to them that the headmaster of a school job involves so many areas, so many obligations, and even the numbers. And of course, you as a circuit supervisor, your job is a circuit supervisor. So everything that goes with it has already been evaluated and you have been put at a point. Of course, it will take some time to wipe away all these previous perceptions about your job you do and your position and your seniority and so on. Basically, teachers also have had a lot to grind with these allowances. Teachers are one aspect and one group of people within the public sector who say that they don't have any allowances. Of course, it is true, because the basic allowances like meals, lunch, and so on had already been consolidated into their pay. So at the end of it, they don't really see what they are getting. Of course, at a point we were negotiating, we were struggling for supervision allowances. That is, if, for example, I'm a headmaster or headmistress of a school having over 2,000 students, of course, I'm not doing the same job as somebody who's looking after 100 kids or 500 kids. So that entails more work, and I need a certain amount of allowance to acknowledge the responsibility or the work, the extra work that I'm doing. In fact, when we look at the allowances, teachers have always said that people have been claiming allowances for other things. Of course, there are additional duties that we do. Our main job is maybe mostly professional, trying to bring the kids up to a certain professional standard, trying to work with your other colleagues, trying to work with the community. But you realize that in this part of the world, the teacher does everything. You become accountant because you have to keep the books, you have to keep the data, you have to keep the numbers, you have to see, especially if you're in a boarding school, you have to see that the kids are taken to hospital if there's a crisis in the middle of the night. If the parent has a problem at home, he brings it to you. To think that you are going to wave the magic wand. There are certain secretarial duties or administrative duties that in other countries the school has a school secretary or a school administrator who keeps all these figures, registration, admissions, daily attendance, examination, coordinating examination results, and so on. All of this has to be done by the same teacher, apart from preparing to go and teach their professional tasks. So that is why people say that, of course, we do a lot of work. When we look at the time for work, the teacher's time for work is not 8 hours. Otherwise, we all go to work at 8 and we close after 8 hours. But teachers go to school earlier than 8, especially if you're on duty. You have to see that even at the basic schools, the compounds are clean, assembly is ready by 7:30. You take the kids through the various 40 minutes each.
But the point is that should that not be considered as part of your responsibilities as a teacher?
What do you actually mean by responsibility?
Why would someone think that that aspect of the job should also be evaluated?
And I believe that that is exactly the evaluation that puts you at a certain level in the work that you're doing. As I said, in other countries, when you go to schools, there's a whole the school secretary has his whole setup.
Exactly.
And then the teachers have their setup.
Yeah.
The teachers don't go and look at who came to school, who fell sick, and the administrative aspect of their work is done by an office. But if you are a headmaster or head teacher in any of the basic schools, now you have to look at capitation grant. So you have to turn yourself into bookkeeper and try to work out the capitation grants and so on. If there's a problem, you are blamed for it, but that is not your work, really. Somebody should do it. If a teacher, one of your teachers is absent, is sick, and doesn't come to school, somebody has to stand in. So the person is actually doing multi-grade.
Yeah.
He's taking in another person's job full-time. In other countries, some time ago, we used to have what we call substitute teachers. So another teacher would come in and do that work. In other classes where you don't have enough classrooms and enough teachers, some of our teachers have to do multi-grade, especially if you go to the rural areas. You see that one classroom, the teacher is actually combining kids who are supposed to be in class 2 and 3 together in one class.
How is this captured under the job evaluation process if it doesn't happen often in terms of multi-grading?
Well, if it doesn't happen often, then it is something extra that the person is doing and has to be acknowledged for that. In fact, I prefer to describe all these allowances as you are acknowledging the person's worth. You are acknowledging what the person is putting in. That if he doesn't do this or that, how would you run the school? I'm always telling people in boarding houses that if you didn't have the teachers to do other things, you couldn't keep that school running for even 1 week. So these things have to be taken into account. You can term them overtime or additional duty. You're looking at your class sizes. Class sizes, primary schools, your PTI, that is people-teacher ratio, we're looking at 35 in a class. And then when you go to JSS, we're looking at 40. But you can have classes, even at basic primary level, 50, 60 with one person. I mean, how do you manage that? But that person has to manage that. So for all that extra load, he's doing somebody's work, because in somewhere else, classes do not even go more than 25. Let's say 30. So if you have a class of 70, it's actually 2 classes you're doing.
Okay. Now, I see the expression on your face, and I know that you would want to make an input regarding what
I want to say. What I want to say is that...
how are you dealing with all these issues that...
Yes, I want to react to some extent to what she said. Most of the allowances that she talked about, we can classify them as responsibilities. And because if you are a teacher, you have, apart from actually teaching the students, you have other responsibilities that you carry out. And these responsibilities have been factored into your job evaluation. Now, others that arise from time to time, we can classify them as under category 2 allowances, as she rightly said. So I believe strongly that we are all on the same wavelength.
Yes. As far as this discussion is concerned. Now, what we're going to do is that I will announce the phone line early enough. It will be rolling on your screen. We will take a few more of your concerns. I remember very well, over the past weeks, we have received a number of text messages, and most of you were talking about categories 2 and 3 allowances. Today, we've made it possible, and this is what we are discussing. My guest in the studio is Mrs. Irene Duncan ADENUSA. She is representing the Ghana National Association of Teachers, and I also have with me a representative from Fair Wages and Salaries Commission in charge of Finance and Administration, Mr. Joseph GADIKOR. And we are looking specifically at categories 2 and 3 allowances. What are they and who qualifies for that? This is what we're discussing. The phone line is 0509079208. Keep that in mind. We have not activated the phone lines yet, but just keep that in mind. 0509079208. It will also be rolling on your screens. And so if you're listening to us on radio, we are connected across the 10 regions of Ghana, and we are live on all our regional networks. And we are also live on GTV, the pulse of the nation. The program is Single Spine, the Issues, and we are talking about categories 2 and 3 allowances, what they are and who qualifies for that. Let me come back to you again, Mrs. ADENUSA. Let's go straight into the allowances, categories 2 and 3. Maybe I'll start with you, Mr. GADIKOR, and then we will highlight or touch on those respective allowances that fall under categories 2 and 3, and then we'll do some more discussions on that.
Yeah, when we talk of category 2 allowance, this is an allowance that is job related.
Okay.
Because it's job related, it is paid to individuals.
Let's highlight the difference again. You spoke earlier on about category 1. And this is 2. You said the 2 is job related.
Yes.
Does it mean that the first one you spoke about
relates to normal duties, responsibilities, and requirements of a job?
Yeah.
So these have already been factored into the job evaluation exercise.
Okay.
And for that matter, whatever basic salary that the employee takes, it takes care of these particular kind of allowances.
Yeah.
But when we talk of category 2, as I said, is job related. Individuals perform certain tasks or assignments from time to time. That is not always. So allowances are paid for performing side duties. For example, if you talk of overtime, overtime is something that an individual employee may engage in from time to time, not every day. Not necessarily every day. Some employees may perform overtime every day. For example, if you talk of watchmen. Aside that, we have what we call height allowance. It is not always that a worker has to perform duties above a certain height for which he should be paid height allowance. So these things occur from time to time. So allowances related to this we classify as category 2 allowances. Now, category 3 allowances are welfare. They are welfare related. That is, for every employer, there is the need for the employer to take care of the employee's welfare. And for that matter, certain allowances are paid to employees in order to at least see to their welfare. Examples like funeral grant, medical grant, warm clothing. These are allowances that are welfare allowances paid to employees.
Okay, so the point is that I would want to believe that these allowances you have touched on will change from one institution to the other based on the kind of job they do.
Yes, what is happening is that within the public services, we have some of these allowances that are cut across all the institutions. These allowances we refer to as core or common allowances. They, anywhere at all you go within the public service, we find them. But the problem we have is that the definition for these allowances differ from one institution to the other. At times, you have, let me give an example. We have overnight allowance, then subsistence allowance. Some people take these two allowances as different ones, you see. But if you look at them critically, it's just one allowance. So the definitions that we assign to these allowances, you see, the definitions vary from one institution to the other. And that is the basic reason why there is the need to at least harmonize these allowances in terms of definition, in terms of making sure that these allowances, which are common across the public service institutions, have the same definition, so that if you move from one institution to the other, the definition should not differ. If I talk about subsistence allowance, everybody in any other institution will understand what I am talking about.
Good. Now, you touched on funeral grant, for instance. Death we don't wish for, but it happens across all the institutions. And I would want to believe that the funeral allowance, or for that matter, funeral grant that will be paid at institution A might not be the same as that of institution B. And you have explained this to us, that it's got to do with the harmonization that you are putting in place. But people are just waiting to have a feel of this exercise, and they're asking questions. When are we going to enjoy these allowances? I know we have done enough education in this area to let people know that you're waiting for government's position white paper on this before you can go ahead. But the need for you to reiterate the point again, I'm sure will go down well with those listening to us.
Yeah, you're right. The government white paper on this particular subject actually recommended that these allowances, as I said already, should be harmonized and standardized. Maybe let me explain the second aspect of it. Standardization of the allowances will, actually will look at determining common rates for all the allowances. For example, when you talk of overtime allowance should have the same rate across the public services, so that if institution A pays 30 cedis as an overtime allowance, the same should be paid in institution B. I think you understand that. So what we're trying to do is that, because we need to harmonize these allowances, now the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission has put in place a committee to actually look at the definitions of these allowances. We, on our part, have actually did some definitions, but a committee, which is a subcommittee of the Public Services Joint Study Negotiating Committee, is to look at the definitions again. Now, after looking at these definitions, firming up the definitions, then we can enter into negotiations as to the rates that we can apply for these allowances. That does not mean that at the moment institutions that have these allowances are not paying. Institutions having these allowances are paying, but at the old rate, at the rate pre the migration exercise onto the single spine salary structure. So, for example, institutions having overtime allowance are still paying overtime allowance at the old rate, because we have not actually entered in negotiations.
Okay. All right. Now, let me run through a few text messages, then I'll give you the opportunity to talk, Mrs. ADENUSA. I have a text, it bears no name. It says that, please ask your guests why prison officers have been refused their allowances whilst other sister security services are receiving theirs. I would have been grateful if you had touched specifically on which allowance, but maybe Mr. GADIKOR will help us.
Yes.
Would you respond to this, please?
Yeah, I want to respond. Now, at the time that we were migrating institutions onto the single spine salary structure, we were not entertaining new allowances at that time. So whatever allowances existed at the time, we used in the migration. So I believe strongly that the institution that
Prison service.
The prison service.
They have been refused
Yes.
allowances, but
we have actually not refused paying allowances to any institution. Whatever allowances that existed before the migration, institutions are still paying.
Yeah.
So it is after we have actually gone through the negotiations, then we can say that, oh, we have core allowances that cut across the entire public services, and then we have some specific allowances that relate to institutions.
Okay. All right. This one also bears no name. It says that doctors on housemanship take market premium, but nurses on internship have no premium. So nurses are not in short supply. Comes with another question. I remember somewhere last week we discussed this at length, and the week before last week. But once you are here again, Mr. GADIKOR, you will take this opportunity to touch on it.
Yeah. Doctors taking market premium.
Yes. And nurses on internship are not.
Nurses
on internship.
I believe that there is a need for us to look at this question very well. Now, when we talk of medical officers,
yeah,
especially the housemen,
yeah,
they are qualified medical doctors. They have been certified. It is only that they are undertaking housemanship.
Yeah.
They have been called to perform, but they are performing housemanship. So their qualification and certification alone qualifies them for a premium as a medical officer. But when we come to the nurses, I believe the nurses are in training. They are still in training.
Don't they find themselves on the same battlefront?
Yes,
that has always been the argument.
Yes. They are also within the health facility. But
assisting the housemen to do their work.
What I want to say is that you must distinguish between the two.
Okay.
One completed the course and certified as a medical officer.
Yeah.
The other still in training. So if you're still in training, you cannot enjoy market premium.
Okay. All right. Let me turn attention to you now. I've just been informed that we have someone on the line. We can, okay. I would rather go for a break. When I come back, Mrs. ADENUSA, you will have your turn, and then we will look at where the demands have come from on the part of teachers. So we're going for this break. We will be back. Touched on in a few allowances. Where do teachers come in?
Yeah, thank you. Let me pick up from where he talked about. In fact, Mr. GADIKOR mentioned certain core allowances that cut across the public sector agencies. Things like, for example, overtime, transfer, what teachers refer to as transfer grants or TNT, and things like out-of-station allowance or day trips, because there are times when the teachers have to travel out for meetings, for exams, or even carry kids on excursion and so on. In fact, nobody actually thinks about the risks involved. Of course, when there's an accident, then the teacher is being blamed. But there's a risk in this country. Maybe we haven't spread our insurance that far. We think that it's normal that kids should go on excursion and so on, but that's a risk, and that's even a trip out of your station. Of course, but
this is where the educational curricula also absorbs that, because that's what we call the extracurricular activities.
But I'm saying in other countries they take care of that. In case there's an accident, who is to blame? Who gets paid for whatever accident happens? Of course, we're talking about, he talked also about the medical grants, the funeral grants, the mileage, the kilometric allowances for both cars and motorbikes, the maintenance allowances for both cars and motorbikes. Even though many teachers might not have cars, but those who have cars, and majority in some parts of the country, majority use motorbikes and bicycles. They still are not getting these meager things. In fact, I want to emphasize, Mr. GADIKOR mentioned that even though the new rates have not been firmed, the negotiations have not been concluded for the new rates of these allowances, yet old rates have to be paid. But I must say that in the Ghana Education Service, these old rates are not being paid. There's always an excuse that the grants, subventions, the disbursements of a budget given to the offices are not enough, so they cannot pay the transfer grants, yet directors decide to transfer people en masse. They are not paying the grants, they are not paying their mere maintenance allowances, medicals are not being paid regularly. Of course, we can say that then the health insurance has come to take care of that, but we know very well that the health insurance doesn't work everywhere. The funeral grants too, it takes, I mean, at times it's not paid at all. And then these teachers are asked to go to your union to collect your funeral grant. It's not the union that pays the funeral grant. It is part of the conditions of service that have to be negotiated or have been negotiated, and the employer has to pay it.
Yeah.
Now, in the education service, the excuse is that, oh, the new rates, category 2 and 3 allowances haven't been finalized yet, so we cannot pay you. And what is happening is that you are hyping up the expectations of the people. So at the end of the year or 2 years, whatever it takes, and you are not able to satisfy them, and yet you haven't paid over the previous years. That is the problem, and that is what teachers are complaining about. Apart from the other things they are asking, like risks. Who says teachers don't have risks? Teachers have risks in the classroom. Apart from the chalk dust, you have risks from assault from both students or parents of the community. You have risks, those who are science teachers and have to be in the chemistry lab, they also have risks to take care of. But we are not talking about all these things, and these are some of the things that the teachers are saying, that if you're looking at such allowances for other areas, they are also in the education sector, both teaching and non-teaching staff. The cooks in our kitchens, many of our school kitchens don't even have the new labor-saving devices that you find in industrial kitchens. The same old firewood and charcoal and things that these old ladies are working on have to start from home at 4 a.m. I mean, they are going through risks. They get sick, hypertension, and so on and so forth. Who takes care of them? So,
how well have you negotiated these demands?
Well, we have negotiated these demands previously. We have even sort of suggested percentages of salaries and so on. And they have not been taken care of. The whole excuse is that inadequate budgetary allocations. Now the new excuse is the almighty single spine and the negotiations for the categories 2 and 3 allowances, which have still not been concluded. But of course we have submitted our proposals.
Okay.
And we're waiting for that committee to start work.
Let me go for a call. We'll come back and then I will throw that one to Mr. GADIKOR, who is ready to answer that one.
Yeah.
You tell us your name and where you're calling from. You are most welcome. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Good evening.
Hello.
I'm Francis, calling from Akwitia in the Eastern region.
Francis from Akwitia, thank you. Go ahead.
All right. I think this whole thing about the single spine stuff is a mess. I think it came to correct the anomalies, the other structures like the health services, salary structure, and the other, sectors, the salary structures we had there, the differences and the problems. But what we've noticed is, for instance, in the health sector, somebody quoted a house officer and then a trainee nurse, one having market premium and the other, and the explanation was training. Let me give you another critical example in the health sector. You have a biostatistics officer and a technical officer in the biostatistics. The technical officer reports to the biostatistics officer. When this single spine thing was being done, they were given 58% of their basic salary as allowance. And the boss, who is the biostatistics officer, giving 30% of his salary as an allowance. Again, when you go to the accountancy within the health sector, accountants and the finance officers, in the health sector, whether the person is a nursing officer a staff nurse or senior staff nurse or whatever, they have 59% of their basic as their market premium. In the accounts, you have an accountant having 30, a finance officer having 15, and the disparity and the differences are so much so that it's like emphasis is laid on something else and not academic qualification, what goes on into. In the health sector, everybody goes to the ward. Even though the nurses spend more time there, we have to go to the ward and also find out about consumables and other things they are using. A biostatistics officer will have to go there, pick data. The risk associated with it is as dangerous as somebody who has been trained to even manage the risk at the ward. So I think if there was supposed to be something to be given, it's the one who hasn't been given special training by the government in the ward, who should rather be compensated for attracting maybe or getting infected or something. Not the one who has been trained. So please.
All right.
The single sign saying they should come back again. I think it's a total mess. Seriously. Thank you.
Francis, you've made your point, but I don't want to believe that majority of Ghanaians would agree with your position. You are entitled to your opinion, and I can tell you that a lot of work has gone into this, and that is why we are here to educate Ghanaians on this. I don't want to speak for the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, but if you have been following us, you would agree with me that we have had the opportunity of talking about job evaluation and what goes into it. Mrs. ADENUSA earlier on attempted to compare the work of the supervisory, circuit supervisor, and then the head teacher and all that. But I'll come back. Your position will be dealt with. Let me go for another call. Hello, tell us your name and where you're calling us from.
Yeah, hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, this is George calling from Tamale.
George from Tamale, let me hear you, my brother.
Yes, Tamale. Yeah, please, I want to know why I have completed Tamale School of Hygiene. Hello?
You want to know why?
School of Hygiene.
Yeah, I want to know why some students have received their allowances since February 2012, and the others haven't received up to now.
Okay, all right, okay. Thank you very much. We will deal with these two questions, and then after that, we will pick some more. Okay, I'm told there's somebody else on the line. Hello? Hello? Hello, your line is live. Okay, let me come back to you, Mr. GADIKOR. Okay, I'm told the person is still on the line. Hello?
Hello.
Yes, tell us your name and where you're calling us from.
I'm Mark. I'm calling from Odumasi Krobo.
Mark from Odumasi Krobo.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mark.
Yeah, when Madam was talking, he was talking about the allowances for science teachers and others. She didn't mention that of physical education teachers. Almost every term, we travel with students to go and do sports. But we are involved in one risk or the other.
Exactly.
And nobody is talking about the PE teacher. So please, we are begging, Madam.
Okay.
Do something about it.
Okay, Madam.
And also, hello.
Yes, we're listening to you, Mark.
I'll show the line. Hello.
Yes.
Please, hello.
We are listening to you, Mark.
I'll show the line, please.
Okay, all right.
Also, teachers at the basic level who are appointed as head teachers are made to act for several years. And when they put them, they give them a substantive headship, they are not giving any taxes. So I want to know what your office is doing to help them get their resources.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Mark from Odumasi Krobo. So, Madam, you should be talking about physical education teachers.
Actually, sorry, Mark, maybe didn't hear me.
Yeah.
Because I think I talked at length about day trips, teachers who have to carry students out for day trips, and whether PE teachers or class teachers who are going on excursion, you have to carry them out from your school, and you are responsible for maybe 60, 100 kids, and that is a risk. And I mentioned that we are not, when we talk about risk allowances, these things have not been considered for teachers, that they are taking a risk. And I think I even talked about no insurance policy being issued or undertaken by government to
and
protect.
that in developed economies you have these things
people,
existing.
And in other places you do not just take people out for a trip without all these things being put in place. Of course, the issue also about the teachers, not only head teachers, but people who are made to act. You see, the acting allowance is something that has seemed to have been swept under the carpet, especially in the GES. So I'm very much aware of what he is talking about, that people act, a head teacher or a headmaster, head of somebody goes away for a long time before a new person is appointed. Or so you are asked to hold the fort before your appointment is finally confirmed. So during that period, when for 2-3 years, when you have been acting and you have been running the school, what happens to you? You are entitled to an acting allowance. So I think, Mark, I did talk about your issues. Maybe I did not mention your physical education and your particular area. But these are the things that we have put under some of the core allowances that should be discussed as part of the public services.
Yes. Now, Francis and George raised critical points, and I think you would take this opportunity to address the short change again and the job evaluation bit, and why somebody is taking 30% of his, and then others are taking 50 and all that.
Yeah, I actually understood his question from an angle.
Yeah.
Meaning that he wants to say that market premium is based on qualification. Actually, market premium is not based on qualification at all.
But that's the perception he's...
Yes. But the qualification that you have is part of the job factor that has already been looked at. Now, for market premium is an allowance that is paid to attract and retain skills that are in short supply, and at the same time they are critical. So it can happen that within an institution, even the boss will not get market premium, but the subordinate will get, because that subordinate has a skill that is a priority for government. For example, this a managing director in an institution may not get market premium, but we have a policy analyst inside an institution getting market premium, although the policy analyst reports to the director. You see, so it is not about qualification at all. And what Fair Wages and Salaries Commission has done so far is an interim market premium. Interim because we have certain institutions or some institutions that have some element of premium already in their old salary regimes. So we talk of the health sector, we talk of the education tertiary sector. These are areas that, if you look at their old salary structure or their old salary regime, they have some elements of premium. That is why we have to go down to at least remove that element and transform the element into what? Interim market premium for them.
Now, so in situations where institutions, as it were, overlook or fail to identify some of these skills in short supply, what do? Do you call the attention to that and you rectify the situation for them?
Because we are actually not implementing market premium. As I said, we are handling interim.
Interim, yes.
So whatever institution that we have there, and that institution looking at the pay regime that was in existence, and we realize that there is an element of premium, that we handle that.
Okay.
But when we come to deal with the implementation of the actual market premium, that will take a different dimension altogether. There, what is going to happen is that we have developed some guidelines by which we will determine how much premium an employee or with a special skill that is scarce will have. Now, before then, it is also very important that government should come out to say that this year we are interested in these and these and these skills, so that we know what type of skills government is having as its priority.
Especially with the oil sector, the oil and gas area is an emerging market, and definitely you would require some special skills in that field.
Definitely.
So you would expect something like that from the government.
Yes.
And then you will know that this is where we would have to target.
Yeah. So looking at these skills made available to us, then we can also carry out what we refer to as a market survey. To find out what exactly they can earn outside what they are earning in their current positions. Then from there, then we do the necessary calculations as per the guidelines that we
during His Excellency's response to the Secretary of the Ghana Medical Association, he talked about the fact that the wage bill of government has increased from 2-point-something billion to close to about 6 billion cedis. And I can imagine if you should go ahead to start paying some of these allowances, what effect this is going to have on the wage bill.
Can I come in before you talk about the wage bill? Talking about the market premium. Well, of course, as he said, it's actually related to countries who plan for your human resource development and management, whatever sector. And of course, in the education sector, of course, when we had some time ago suggested giving some teachers of certain subjects and so on, which everyone knows that they are in short supply all over, some premium, and that could be the market premium. And I believe that many previous governments, not even this one, even previous governments have talked about the rural areas, people who decide that and they accept that they're going to stay there for a number of years before they come back into the cities to continue with their education. I think that the problem we have in this country, I always say that when we spend money training the people, we have to look at the retention aspect. And the retention aspect is where the premium comes in. Because if you train all these teachers, you post them and they disappear. You have not actually done your work. You have not delivered to the people, and that is where the retention comes in. So looking at the rural areas, looking at the some of the subject areas, depending also on your human resource plan. When you look at the oil,
let me hold on for me. Let me pick a call. I'm sorry to interrupt, but let me pick a call. Hello.
Hello.
Yes. Tell us your name and where you're calling us from.
Okay. Please, I want to contribute. I want to ask a question.
What's your name? What's your name?
Pardon me?
Your name?
My name is Joseph Acha.
Okay, Joseph.
Yes, please.
Go ahead, Joseph.
I want to ask. I want to find out when is the newly trained teachers. They are very old.
Newly trained teachers?
2010, 2011. I want to find out when. Because since then, my friend is having a serious problem.
This person
Okay. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Joseph. You didn't tell us where you were calling from, but I think your point is made. He wants to know. There's another one on the line. Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Yes. Your name and where you're calling us from?
This is Cletus calling from Bolgatanga.
Cletus from Bolgatanga. Thank you very much, Cletus.
Yes. I want to find out if you are a head teacher who is not up to the rank of principal, and you are being made to do the work of the head teacher, yet you are not taking any allowance. And at the same time, you are equally a classroom teacher. under which category can this teacher fall?
Okay.
What are some of the benefits that the teacher will get?
We'll get to it.
Acting.
All right. I guess he's in that bracket of acting.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Yes. So the benefits attached
I
to
think
that.
Cletus, you are supposed to get an acting allowance. In fact, that is a quarrel we have been having with GES, that in some areas, for anybody to be eligible to be headmaster or head teacher, he should be a principal superintendent. But in some areas in the northern sector and so on, we realize that there's a problem. You do not have many of such people fitting into the role of head teacher. So at times they look around the school and maybe the next senior teacher who is who can do the work might be a senior superintendent. So he acts as head teacher.
All right. Let me pick another call. I'm sorry. Hello, your name and where you're calling from?
Yeah, I'm still calling from Kumasi.
Okay, let's hear you, my brother.
Yeah, I want to sign up on the Pay Wages Commission. Actually, the staff of the public universities who used to earn concession allowances, when they were migrated into the single spine, those allowances were cut off. But when we talked, they said it is part of it has been consolidated. But once it's consolidated, you compare your salary to somebody who used not to enjoy this concession allowance. You end up taking earns more than you. And now in this case, where do we put it? Because it's we those who used to earn this concession allowance have made worse off and the single spine.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Let me come back to you. You got his point?
Yeah. Yes, it is true that allowances that we classify as category 1 allowances, they have been consolidated. So the fact that they have been consolidated does not mean that Fair Wages and Salaries Commission is making the worker worse off.
Okay.
That is the main reason why we have what we call convention difference. So whatever salary that you were receiving earlier, as compared to the single spine salary, if your old salary, consolidated salary, is higher than the single spine one, then we pay you the difference, or the difference is paid to you as a convention difference, so that you are not made worse off. I believe that you do for that question. Then concerning the wage bill, you touch on the allowances and the effect on the wage bill. Yeah, it is true that the wage bill for government has actually increased from almost 2.8 billion to almost 6 billion. Now, with these allowances coming into play, most of them are indexed on salaries. In other words, they are percentages of salaries. And for that matter, it means that the wage bill will definitely go higher.
Before we even wrap up this segment, quickly, what are you going to do to ensure fair distribution to the various public services as far as these allowances are concerned?
Yeah,
briefly. And
that's why we say that, first of all, we are going to harmonize.
Okay.
By harmonization, we are having common definitions for all of them. And then from there, we standardize. Now, the allowances are in two categories. We have the core or the common allowances. So whatever you find yourself, whether you are having those core or common allowances, we are all going to enjoy it now. So in terms of the teachers, that is why they will have to negotiate within their service classification group in order to determine these core allowances.
Okay.
So that the other ones which are specific to the institutions themselves will be negotiated also separately.
Time has always been an enemy, but I guess you have done justice to all the various pointers we have raised on this platform, and I will take this opportunity to thank you so much. Mrs. IRENE Duncan ADENUSA represented the Ghana National Association of Teachers, and Mr. Joseph GADIKOR, Director, Finance and Administration, Fair Wages and Salaries Commission. Remember to join us again, same time next Saturday, live on GTV and all our regional networks. My name is Cecil Ni Obodai Wintum. I'm thanking all of you, and keep watching GTV. Thank you.